And welcome back, Bears fans, to the Week 14 edition of the Bears Brothers Postgame Show. As the Bears unfortunately fell 20-17 to the Detroit Lions in a game that pretty much could be summed up by all the penalties, all the missed calls. This game was pretty much won and lost there, especially in that final drive of the game where the Bears seemingly were about to enter field goal position a couple of times, but penalties brought them back out. And that's the big reason why the Bears were unable to come away with a win. That said, there were a lot of positives to come away with this. We played the division-leading Lions pretty well for the second time this season, giving me a lot of hope and optimism for the future. But we're not focusing on the future. We're going to focus on this game. So let's definitely break it down. I am your host, Will DeWitt. I am joined today by only one of my Bears brothers, Nicholas Moriano, as Brandon has the day off. But Nick, I know you woke up with a sore throat. How are you feeling? You ready to break down this game?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I've been eating cough drops throughout the day watching the game, but I'm ready to break down this game.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. Before we get breaking down this game, I want to urge you to subscribe to our YouTube channel as you receive a notification each and every time that we go live. So, Nick, let's enter the first quarter of our show, which consists of our opening segments and, of course, our most valuable Bears. And I'm going to start this like I always do with my monster moment. And my monster moment, I have a couple here, but I'm going to have to go with just the one, of course. So I'm going to have to go with, in the third quarter, the Lions marched down the field with a long drive and a field goal to extend the lead to 10. And I tweeted out at that time that this time to do something was now. And the Bears did. On the first play of the following drive, Howard busted through the left side of the line for a 31-yard gain. 2 plays later, Bellamy actually caught a ball, which was good for a 16-yard gain. And then the very next play, Barkley found Meredith deep to his right with a perfect throw that dropped right into Meredith's hands, which was good for a 31-yard touchdown, putting the Bears back into 3. And that's how you answer in the second half when your backs are against the wall, you're down by 10, and everything's seeming to fall apart. The Bears were unable to maintain much momentum for a while there, but they were able to overcome it all and put the game within reach, and that's why that's going to have to be my monster moment. But, Nick, I'm going to go to you for your knack or knock before we get to Brandon's side of the game.
Yeah, with this game, it had so many ups and downs, but I will knock the Bears just for how many penalties they did have. And I bet you if Brandon was here, his stat of the game would be the 11 penalties for 139 yards.
Well, let's just say that is, because that's exactly what I was going to put, because that's definitely the stat of the game.
There's no doubt, because those penalties came at the worst of times, just killing drives. And yeah, that's my knock for them. It was on offense, defense, just all over the field. There were penalties, and the Bears they should have beat the Detroit Lions today, but those penalties really came back to bite them.
They really did. They really did, Nick. All right, so let's get into handing out our most valuable Bears of the game. Nick, I'm going to go ahead and let you start with this one. Who's your MVP?
My most valuable Bear would have to be Matt Barkley. I think he did everything right today. He threw accurately, stood in the pocket, despite there was pressure in his face. He did everything with all the weapons that are around him, which isn't many. Right. And Barkley, he's putting together some good games, and looking forward, I'm comfortable with him being our quarterback for the rest of the season. And if he plays well throughout the next season, but I think he definitely is our most valuable Bear for me.
I like it. No, I had a hard time really picking and choosing who's going to be my most valuable Bear today. A part of me wants to do Jordan Howard. He had the 86 yards on the ground, but only the 13 carries. I wish he would have had 7 more, because if he did, we probably would have won. But, geez, this is tough. I don't know. Is that weird? Like, I honestly don't have one, because some part of me wants to pick LeBlanc for that pick 6, but there are other plays that he doesn't really deserve to be the most valuable Bear of the game. But I'm going to have to probably echo what you said here and pick Matt Barkley just for orchestrating that one drive to respond, the one that was the monster moment, which was the defining moment, I think, of that Bears game, showing that they have some resiliency in the second half, something that we haven't seen a lot of. And that's why I think I'm going to have to go with Barkley as well. There's a few things that I think he can clean up, but overall, I thought he had a really good game, and I have more I want to talk about him, but we'll definitely hit on that later when we enter the next quarter of our show, which is coming right up after this SeatGeek ad, because I have to tell you about our friends at SeatGeek, because they've been changing the way that people can go ahead and purchase tickets, because it's been a confusing process for such a long time, but SeatGeek makes it different. They show you the best deal, the best bang for your buck. They kind of help you find out what kind of value you're getting when you're looking at sporting events, which is really awesome, because a lot of other sites don't do that. And Nick, I know you've used it. I've used SeatGeek before, and it's a really great way to just get good deals, and you know what you're getting, because sometimes when you go to other websites, you just don't know if it's a good deal or not. But The best part of all, our listeners get a $20 rebate off their first purchase. And to get that rebate, all you have to do is download the SeatGeek app, go to the settings tab, and add the promo code BEARS, BEARS, BEARS. All right, this is Will DeWitt. I'm joined by Nicholas Moriano, and we are entering the second quarter of our show as we're about to break down the Chicago Bears offense performance in this matchup. And let's start like we always do, Nick, with the man under center. I know I have some more I want to say on Matt Barkley, but I want to give you a chance to start. What kind of game do you think he had today? You did say you're comfortable with him being your quarterback perhaps next season. Why so?
Just the confidence that he had in the pocket with, even though there was pressure in there, he stood in there and threw accurate balls. There was a couple ones where there was pressure in his face. He turns around, throws it to Howard. Howard's late to see it, and it's almost picked off. But whenever he drops back, I'm confident in knowing that he's going to look through his receivers, look through his checkdowns, and find the opening guy. And I just feel confident moving forward and against a pretty good Detroit Lions defense who's had a couple of, interceptions as of late in the past few games. They didn't get one today, and Matt Barkley played really well. Imagine if Alshon Jeffrey's playing this game.
One more week.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm ready for next week.
He's going to have a true number one receiver, not having to throw to Deontay Thompson and Joshua Bellamy, who, quite frankly, I am tired of. We'll get to the receivers later in the show, but Matt Barkley is proven that he can play in this league. And he deservedly showed because he's being very accurate, and that's what we need in a quarterback right now. Just an accurate guy who's going to get the ball to the receivers.
Exactly. Someone who can play within the system and not try to do a little bit too much, which is exactly how he plays the game. I mean, he finished 20 of 32 for 212 yards. He had the one sack, but he had that one nice touchdown to Cameron Meredith back in that monster moment. But there's one moment that I really want to talk about real quick. And it's when the Bears started from inside their own 5, and it was first down. And I think everyone thought that Jordan Howard can probably be running that ball, try to give a little bit of a cushion there. But Dow showed a bunch of confidence in him because he allowed him to throw in that first down situation inside his own 5. And what he did, he did everything you said. He didn't panic. He stepped up when there's pressure. And I've seen quarterbacks like last week with Leonard Floyd's safety that just kind of freak out when they get back there. But he was cool, calm, and collected in his own end zone. He was able to get a pretty big strike, which ended up being a 24-yard game, which was plenty of cushion for the rest of that drive. But that's one moment that I just think proves that he's becoming comfortable playing in the NFL. And not just that, but that his offensive coordinator is just confident that he's able to get it done and can dial up some big-time plays. And that's something that we should talk about. You mentioned it was Alshon Jeffrey and what he can do with him. Because Alshon comes back next week. And I think this is going to be huge because if these two can build some sort of rapport, a little bit of chemistry, I believe that's going to, sway heavily in the Bears' decision going into next year. Because if these two can kind of build some chemistry and say Alshon ends up with these 3 games with 2 to 3 touchdowns and some decent yards, I think they can definitely see these two being an option next year, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, no doubt. With, being Alshon Jeffrey being franchise tagged, he's going to have to prove himself at the end of the season. And Matt Barkley's showing he's going to throw an accurate ball. And when he gets Alshon Jeffrey back, he's going to look his way. So it just gives Barkley another weapon, a much-needed weapon. So, yeah, I want to see if these two can get some kind of chemistry going into the end of this season, going into next season. Hopefully they can because, we're going to need them both moving forward because there's question marks on the entire offense, going into next season.
There is, but there's one player or position that I don't think there is a question mark, and that's running back with Jordan Howard. Again, he finished today with the 13 carries, 86 yards, and he also added 24 more through the air, which is exactly 100. So he had a 100-yard game yet again. So good job there, Jordan Howard. But what did you see from him today? It was more or less the same for me, just kind of with those big plays, the normal Jordan Howard-esque football that we've kind of grown to know.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's what we're seeing each and every week from Jordan Howard. He's going to break tackles. He's going to get some big gains. But I just don't, you said 13 carries, right, Will?
Yeah, there's not enough.
Yeah, not enough. Exactly. And this is a close ball game throughout the entire game. So I don't see why we don't give him the ball more. I mean, he obviously produces whenever he has the ball in his hands. I know that the Lions were starting to stack the box a little bit more, but, you got to keep the defense honest. But Jordan Howard, he's having these games where he's just very consistent. It's just every game that we go into, I'm like, Jordan Howard's going to do his thing. He's going to break some tackles and just get, his yardage. So, I mean, I love what Jordan Howard's doing. He's going to continue to do it for the rest of the season.
Exactly. But, again, you said it wasn't enough, and you talked about how the Lions were stacking the box and all that's, all fine and dandy, Nick. But he was still averaging 6.6 yards per carry. And I don't get, why he doesn't get more of those carries. I understand that final drive, you're a little bit more pass heavy. But even before then, they kind of just went with more of that passing attack, which I don't know if I totally agree with. I still think that Jordan Howard needs to get more touches because the Bears, they didn't do well with time of possession. Like that one, the monster moment, that drive, it was a great drive, not knocking it one bit. But the one teeny tiny little bit of concern I had with it, it only lasted 2 minutes. And the Bears defense was out there for like over 5 minutes right beforehand. They had no time to rest. And I think a big part of this Bears offense moving forward, they need to focus on using Howard just for anything else, just utilizing and winning more of that time of possession because they are not. And I think that's a big reason why this Bears defense just kind of seems to falter down the stretch a little bit, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, and we would think with John Fox, he likes to use running back by committee. He would think that he'd want to win time of possession, not to knock that touchdown drive because, again, they did end up with points. But you want to see Jordan Howard, run the ball, give that defense that, like you said, was probably out there for 5 to 6 minutes the previous possession. You want to give him a chance to just recover and just get a breath, really. But, yeah, Jordan Howard needs to get the ball more moving forward. I don't know why. I don't know how that's not in Dow Loggins' mind and the Bears organization. They just give him the ball more each and every game.
Exactly. I feel like they just believe that everyone's expecting that, so they won't do it. But obviously it's working, so just do it. But a big reason why Jordan Howard was able to be so effective today was due to that offensive line, who I thought didn't do a bad job today. The penalties, they still really hurt me down the stretch. But overall, Nick, I mean, the first run that Jordan Howard had, that 28-yarder, was largely due to that perfect execution that the Bears offensive line had. Leno and Brown both had the kick out. Sitton had a little bit of a 2-on-1, and Howard had like one of the bigger holes that he's had all season. And I think that's, a big reason why he's been able to be so productive. But even in the passing game, this offensive line still found ways to get it done. They did a good job most of the afternoon with protection. They kept Barkley upright for the majority of the game. The only thing is that, of course, the one sack they had to give up was that 3rd and 9 with the Bears driving towards the end of the game, their second to last possession, and they allowed that second sack in only 11 plus quarters, which is quite an impressive feat. Not gonna lie, but the timing couldn't have been any worse for that sack. What did you see from this Bears offensive line today?
It doesn't matter who goes in and plays offensive line right now for the Bears because they're getting the job done. Yes, we only 2 sacks, past 11 quarters. It's amazing. They're doing a great job. They're without Kyle Long, arguably their best offensive lineman. And you were just describing the one play where Howard gets that 20-plus yard gain. Yeah, everyone got their assignments. Josh Sitton had a nice seal-out block. No, this offensive line is really, coming up and playing well, and it doesn't matter who's in there. And I cannot wait to see with all the depth that they're going to have next season and then guys being healthy. It's going to be a fun, those 3 with Whitehair, Long, and Sitton in the middle. That could be the best, arguably the best, interior offensive lineman combo other than the Cowboys right now because they're just getting the job done. And, like you said, they gave Howard holes and they gave Barkley enough time to throw.
Which is, their 2 main jobs, so kudos to them. But something I wanted to know, in my notes, I put in the first quarter that the Bears did a really good job of just being balanced. At one point, I saw they had 5 rushes to 6 passes. But then from that point, they just pretty much went the complete opposite and lost all their balance, which I don't know. Were you concerned by that, or do you think it was just kind of more how the game flow went?
Well, see, it does make sense because the game was so close. It should have been that way throughout the remainder of the game. And I think that goes back to Dow Loggins. Great offensive coordinators, I think, know that you got to keep the defense honest, and you do that by mixing up run and pass plays. And with the game being so close, it should have been run, pass, and it should have been really even there. So it is a bit concerning because Dow Loggins, in the games that we've won, he's had good game calls. In the games we lost, it's not the same. So I think he needs to get more consistent, definitely, with his play calling.
If you had to grade him today, what would you give him? Because I'm kind of torn because, really, it was getting the job done. We were in position to tie or win this game. It's just more of the execution, more of the penalties. But overall, what would you grade his play calling today?
Honestly, today he did have I thought he had a pretty good game, even despite Jordan Howard not getting his touches because they had a chance to win. Just those penalties killed him. If I had to grade him, I would give him a B. I thought he played it's well enough that they could have won just those penalties really killed them.
They did. All right, let's talk about these wide receivers. Let's not talk about Josh Bellamy because that would be awful. No, if you want to talk about those drops, you can, but I don't know what else to say besides, oh my God, just catch the damn ball.
It's weird. He catches the tough ones, but then the easy ones, like he'll let him hit the chest or the one on the sideline. Barkley did throw the ball a little outside, but that's still a catchable ball for any NFL wide receiver. You don't have to jump up and make that catch. And then, we saw Daniel Braverman. He had that big catch. And then the holding, after today, if Daniel Braverman does not get more into the offense and Joshua Bellamy does, I'm going to be really disappointed because Daniel Braverman caught that tough pass. Joshua Bellamy has been a roller coaster ride each and every time he runs a route. But, and then overall, they need to get some more playmakers on offense. They need to get healthy. They need Alshon Jeffrey. They need Kevin White. I like Cameron Meredith.
Yeah, I think he needs to stay, don't you?
Who?
Meredith.
Oh, yeah, Meredith definitely needs to stay. With the way that receivers have gone down, the inconsistency that we've had at the wide receiver position, we definitely need someone like him who – and you know what? Even though I do like what he did have a big drop in this game as well.
That's true.
Yeah, so I don't know. We got to work on the hands for our receivers right now.
But guess who doesn't? Daniel Braverman. Did you see him go up for that thing too? I really thought that was Brown because I was like,
yes. Yeah.
I was like, who was that? And then I saw 83 and I was like, no way. I mean, that was a really big time play. But again, he only had 2 targets today. You're only going to see 1 in the box score, but that's because the other one was negated due to the penalty. But no, I think what do you have to lose at least trying to use him some more? I mean, at least look his way, put him out the field more. I think we played 6 snaps last week. I don't have a snap count for this game. But I just think he needs to be out there more and just try, because why not? I think that you can at least see if he can be that slot guy, which I think we all believe he really can. I think that play kind of proved that he has it in him. And I'm excited to see what he can do, especially if Alshon comes back, because then you have that big-bodied guy on the outside, and you can have that shifty little slot guy that I think the Bears desperately need. But hopefully as we move forward, this Bears offense, the only thing I think they just need to continue to do, I think just experiment now. I think you really just need to figure out what kind of offense you want to have next year and what's going to work, what's not going to, especially when it comes to personnel like Barkley and Alshon, Barkley and Braverman, Cameron Meredith, how you want to utilize Jordan Howard. Maybe they're just not running him so much because I don't know why, actually. I don't even know where I was going with that.
There's not a good explanation
where I was going with that.
They're not using him. And Barkley's came out and said, Braverman has been good in practice and, can get open, so they have to utilize him more. We want to see more Daniel Braverman. I think everyone does, so they have to use him more.
All right, Nick. Any final thoughts on this Bears offense before we move into our third quarter of our show?
These penalties have to get better, but I think they will. I know it's a tough environment going into Detroit, but that definitely needs to get cleaned up for next week.
Yep, no, pretty much the same here. Penalties need to be cleaned up, but overall, I'm actually surprised by how well this Bears offense was able to move the ball today. I thought they would struggle a little bit without Eddie Royal and just, obviously the lack of the targets, but they've been finding ways to make do without them, and that is something that we shouldn't take too much take for granted, really. But all right, coming up next is our third quarter of our show where we're going to break down this Bears defensive performance. There are a few players that I know I want to talk about, and I'm sure Nick does too. But before we get into that, I want to urge you all to subscribe to our email newsletter. That way you can get our our post-game emails, which is a little bit more in depth. We break it down a little bit more commentary as well. It's a really good way to just kind of recap the game. But the only way you can get it is if you sign up for our newsletter, which is at thebearsbros.com/subscribe. I'd love to see you subscribe. And if you do, just tweet us and let us know, and I'll definitely thank you for that. All right, Nick, let's enter the third quarter of our show. Let's talk about this Bears defense. What's your overall thoughts here? We can start with the defensive line, or we can just kind of go all over the place here.
Well, the defense, they played well. They definitely played well enough for the Bears to win this game. I would have liked, even though the Bears, I think they ended the game with 3 sacks on the day. I'm not completely sure. I know, but
yeah,
they played well. Yeah, three sacks, and it's just there's some key penalties. It just goes all back to penalties, honestly. With pass interference calls, Tracy Porter had back-to-back penalty calls on himself, and then there's a big one on Cravon LeBlanc. Defense, I thought there was definitely some bright spots, definitely things they need to work on. Safeties need to learn how to tackle. Deion Bush had a big missed tackle on Anquan Bolden, I think late in the third quarter.
Right.
But guys, yeah, so and when we talk about the inside linebackers, I want to get on Floyd a little bit, but they played well enough to win. Obviously they had a pick six. They had interception, and that's great because this Bears defense has been lacking turnovers all season. But have to work on the penalties and just got to wrap up, especially on that Stafford run.
Let's not talk about that. All right.
Oh my goodness, that would just killed me. That one killed me, honestly.
Again, no, you brought up the turnovers, and I need to bring up a very interesting stat. Okay, so Hurst and LeBlanc both got interceptions, all right? And after LeBlanc's, that was Stafford's 7th interception of the year. 4 of them came against the Bears, which means 57% of Matthew Stafford's interceptions for this entire season has came against the Chicago Bears. So if we don't have his number, I don't know what else, because that's impressive. That I don't know what we do differently than other teams, but I'm sure other teams are going to be looking at what we do and how we prepare and how we attack him, because obviously we find ways to force him into some interceptions, which I think definitely goes into the pass rush, because the Bears pass rush, for the majority of this game, I wasn't really all too upset about it. Some people were, but again, 3 sacks is pretty good. But more than that, there are a lot of plays that don't show up in the stat sheet that kind of had some impact. Really, there's a majority of times where Leonard Floyd would, disrupt his rhythm in the pocket. He just didn't look comfortable back there for the majority of the day, which I thought was a huge reason why he was able to we're able to force him into some turnovers. Again, even though our turnovers were more of the one was kind of lucky off the bounce, the other one was just good stuff by LeBlanc. But nevertheless, I was a big fan of the Bears pass rush today. But let's start with the guys up front. I want to talk about Eddie Goldman real quick, because he left due to an ankle injury, and I'm starting to be concerned that this is going to be a persistent issue throughout his career, because ever since he went down last year, it just seems like he's unable to put a few games together without going down again. Nick, are you concerned as well?
No, I definitely am, because it's just every week you just don't know if Eddie Goldman's going to be able to go because of that ankle injury that he sustained last season. And he's a big focal point for this defense. And without him, they lose a lot of depth on the defensive line. But yeah, just another injury issue that the Bears have to, battle through. And with it being, so consistent, it is concerning going into next season.
All right, so you said you wanted to get on Leonard Floyd. I want to know why, because personally, I thought he had a good game. It wasn't like one of those wow games where he's going to, show up all over the stat sheet, but he played a game in which I said he had a bigger impact that his stats are going to show. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I thought he did some good things, but there were some plays where I think he could have done more. On that one Matthew Stafford run, he was right there. He was right behind Stafford, just a little bit swipe at the leg. That saves a touchdown right there. And there were just a couple plays where, you see great players. They just make that play where it's finishing plays. That's what Floyd needs to learn. He's still a rookie. And, I think he's going to learn to be that finisher. This game, I thought he had a bunch of opportunities. And when I go back and watch the tape, I'm definitely going to look at him and see what he did. But I thought there were plays where he missed a sack. He missed a game-changing play, because I was waiting for it all day, Will. I was waiting for that game-changing play where a sack, fumble, anything like that. But, it didn't happen. He did make some impact plays that did cause turnovers and, made Stafford uncomfortable. But I think I just hold Leonard Floyd to a higher standard, because I think he's capable of it. And once he's, we'll see him grow and develop, he's going to be a great player. And he's going to learn how to finish. But I thought this game he had some opportunities and he just didn't do it today.
See, that's interesting how we have different perspectives on it. You see it as failed opportunities, and I see them as, not impacting the game on the stat sheet, but still finding small ways to impact it. But I can understand where you're coming from, where in some of those plays, he did miss the sack. He wasn't able to finish, and those are things that are going to come with time. But he still he impresses me. I mean, he had a few good plays in coverage, which is good to see that he can obviously be used in a couple of different ways. Obviously, we kind of want him to be used as a pass rusher, though. But a couple of things, too, I saw. Like, one, I saw him ripping at the ball a ton in this game, just trying to rip that ball out. I love that effort. I love that aggressiveness. He just wants to force turnovers, which is something that obviously we need. And I think he's going to be one of those guys who can do that moving forward. But I want to talk about the guy across from him real quick, Pernell McPhee. Have you noticed that he's kind of seeming like he's getting that pep back in his step, that he's starting to explode off the ball like we expect him to?
Oh, yeah, I definitely saw that today, too. I mean, it's starting to come together. But with that, it's kind of hard to put all, Willie Young, Leonard Floyd, and Pernell McPhee all on the field. But I did see that today. Pernell McPhee definitely had a much better game today than he has in the past 2 weeks. So I'm glad, because he's a focal point. He's the opposite guy of Leonard Floyd right now. So they have to go and get him going. But yeah, because he has McPhee, Floyd, and Willie Young, and he has to try to get them all on the field. And that's kind of tough.
No, it is very tough, but I mean, geez, if these injuries keep going like they have, especially across that Bears defensive line, they might just have to do it out of because they have no other bodies to do it. But yeah, again, I get excited when I talk about these edge rushers because they just know they just impact the game in so many ways, and they're just fun to watch. I love watching them each and every play, just kind of get after the quarterback and hopefully that they can continue to keep up these sacks as the season moves along. But let's move over to these inside linebackers because I kind of have a mixed bag review here when it comes to the play of, Nick Wachowski and also John Timo today. Timo, I'll start with the bad first. I thought he was very quiet today, but he also struggled a bit. He had a hard time getting off blocks. He got pushed around some. He also was one of those people who kind of missed Stafford on that late touchdown run. But overall, did you see the same things I was there? Did you see Timo struggling?
Yeah, Timu more than Kwiatkowski because I thought Kwiatkowski actually had a pretty decent game. But Timu, like, it all comes back to that Stafford play because that really got me. But yeah, no, he had plenty of opportunities to make bigger impacts on this defense, and that one play in particular with Stafford, there's a gang tackle where it could be made to send zone. It's just not, and him being the inside middle linebacker, that's your job. That's focal, one job that you have to do. And even the running game, late into the second half or late in the first half, the Lions were able to get a little bit of the running game going, and that's going Kwiatkowski and Timo. So yeah, we're definitely missing Freeman out there because
Oh yeah.
with him. If he was out there, I don't have any doubt in my mind that he makes that more plays than Timu does. But Kwiatkowski, I'm seeing him become a big hitter and being someone that I'm looking forward to. Um, uh, geez, why am I blanking right here? Danny Trevathan.
There you go.
And yeah, I'm like, wow, Danny Trevathan with him having a big time injury. With Kwiatkowski there, I'm pretty comfortable with him right now. He's a rookie. He's got some growing pains still, but they'll get better, just like Leonard Floyd. They'll get better as time goes on.
Yeah, Kwiatkowski for me, he continues to impress just how he plays the game. I mean, he plays fast. There's one play where I saw him just like burst through the hole like a bullet, and he just laid a pop on the ball carrier. He also got his first sack of his career, first of many, I'm pretty sure of. But when he forced Stafford out of bounds, his speed I think continues to be an X factor. He has that sideline to sideline speed. That reminds me of someone else who I don't want to name, and because I don't want to put the comparison out there just yet, because that's kind of I might be a little overzealous if I did so. But he does show some signs of struggle. He does also tend to get a little bit glued to blocks at times, but that's going to kind of come with experience, and I think that he'll clean that up. But there was one play today in which that we saw a play from Leonard Floyd and Nick Kwiatkowski together where they didn't look like rookies. They looked like seasoned veterans. And that's when there was a misdirection play. Floyd stayed put. Brandon, I think if you're listening out there, you would be proud of how well he kept us contained. He forced the ball carrier inside, which ended up being a tackle for the loss. But Kwiatkowski in the same boat. He wasn't fooled. He was able to wrap up the ball carrier. And I think that play by both of them was just great discipline, a great read. And it just shows that they're playing really smart, and this game isn't too much for them. And I think that they can continue to play with that kind of confidence. I think the sky's the limit for both of these players. I really do. Do you have any other thoughts on these linebackers before we switch to the secondary, Nick?
Just on that one play, yeah, I remember watching that and like kind of thinking, man, maybe this is, there's guys before there will be maybe, so they'll continue to get better.
Awesome. All right, we'll switch over to the secondary. DeAndre Hall was active for the first time since week 5. I didn't see too much out of him today, besides he a couple tackles. But overall, I mean, when a corner comes in, because he came in for Tracy Porter after Porter left due to that illness, which I don't know what exactly was going on there, but I think he just wanted it to be halftime. He just ran out, and I was like, I'm done. That was terrible because he didn't have a good first half. That was one of the poorer halves from Tracy Porter. But once Hall was in there, I didn't see his name called too much, which isn't a bad thing when you're playing a corner. You kind of want your name to be quiet unless you're making a play like a pick six or an interception or like a deflection. But if you're not throwing your way, you're doing your job. But overall, let's talk about the secondary. What were some of your big observations from this?
Just at times when plays got broken down and like plays extended, Matthew Stafford extended plays, I saw guys in the secondary just kind of leave their assignments, and that's why some big plays happened. That's why the pass interferences happened, and just the lack of secondary. At one point, I'm pretty sure we had Hurst and LeBlanc at, the outside corners. And you're just wondering, man, our guys are pretty injured right now. I would like to see if Kyle Fuller, he was back and put on the active roster. I want to see if he's ever going to get a chance to play again. But DeAndre Hall, the few things that I did see from him, I noticed that before the snap of the ball, he would back up just a little bit more. Maybe just because he's getting back into the mix of things. Maybe give him some more cushion. But DeAndre Hall is a guy that I really like, and if he stays healthy, I want to definitely see him finish out the season at corner. Bryce Callahan, I think he's great in the slot. And there was a big pass breakup on third down on Golden Tate that he had. And
yeah, that was
Callahan's a guy that you can count on. Yeah, and then Porter, this was the one game where he really struggled. In the first matchup against Detroit, he locked down Marvin Jones, and Golden Tate only had one reception or something like that in the first. Yeah, so this is the first time he's ever struggled, so I'm not going to count that against him. He's been battling knee injuries all season, and then LeBlanc, man, you're like, man, he's he looks like a rookie out there, but on that pick six, that's a veteran move. Staying with a veteran receiver like Anquan Bolden in the pick six, but there's mixed reactions. Then the safeties missed some open tackles. I still think they got to find another guy at safety because Deion Bush, HJQ, they both at times have their mishaps, missed tackles. Then Amos. We need to see him become a playmaker, which we have not seen yet.
Right. I was actually curious why he didn't get the start despite being active, which was the first time that's ever happened in his career. Every game that he's been active, he has started besides this one. But it was pretty funny because at halftime, after HJQ just got bullied by Matthew Stafford for like an entire drive, it seemed like, I clambered on Twitter. I was like, oh, just please, can we put in Amos in the second half and just replace HJQ? Which they did, which I thought was pretty funny. But yeah, I agree pretty much everything you said. I couldn't say it much better if I tried, so I'm not going to try to rehash it. But going back real quick to that Callahan play, it was a good one. It was like a veteran play. That was textbook coverage there. Quick feet, that diving finish on the ball. That was a big play because it forced a field goal instead of allowing them to get another first down, which would have been like probably first and goal, if I'm not mistaken, thinking about that drive. So that was a big-time play by Callahan. One that, if you look back, if we would have won, it might have been one that we look back at. And so it was kind of like a turning point of sorts because it really was, because if the Lions scored a touchdown on that drive, this game probably has an entire different feel to it for sure. But all right, any other final thoughts on this Bears defense before we end up entering the fourth and final quarter of our show, Nick?
Just when plays break down and plays get extended, got to remember your assignments. That's the big thing, and that's why the penalties happen and why big plays happen for the Lions. But moving forward, have to stay disciplined.
Nope, sounds pretty good to me. All right, let's enter this fourth quarter of our show, which usually consists of a quick hit on special teams and some penalty issues. But I think we already touched on the penalties quite enough earlier today. And special teams, I thought, for the majority of this game was I don't want to say a non-factor, but it's just kind of what we expect. Field goals for field goals. Barth is making me eat my words from earlier this season when I thought he could never make a field goal to save his life, but he's proved me wrong there, so which I'm not complaining about, by the way. But overall, yeah, I thought the Bears special teams, solid performance. They weren't really needed too much today. In fact, of the return game. Thompson, he didn't run any out and only get like 9 yards, so nowhere to complain about there. But overall, let's just talk about this game as a whole. If you had to grade this Bears performance, what would it be?
Man, that's a tough one because they played well enough to win, but obviously that wasn't the case. They could have definitely put up some more points. The penalties really were a factor. In the end, it's still a loss against the division leaders. But, I thought, they deserve a B, I think. I think they deserve B because despite all those penalties, they should have won this game. And I believe they outplayed Detroit. But, yeah, I'll give them a B.
B is good. 34% of Bears fans on Twitter give them a B. I'm more in the B- range, which I know I'm usually the positive one here. But I just had to do the B- for just all the penalties and all those issues because the penalties were just astronomical. And they, especially on that final drive, that's where my grade kind of dropped because we were right there. We could have, put the game in our hands, and we had it in our hands, and we pretty much just let go of it. Kind of like if you had to think of the game as a football, and Joshua Bellamy was trying to catch it, we just dropped it. I think that that's what's going to knock me down to like that B- range. But when you put everything in, perspective, where you think of like since we've played Detroit back in week 4, they've only lost one game. Matthew Stafford only threw one interception. They were pretty much hot. They haven't lost a game since like October. I think when you think about it in that aspect, you almost have to give them like a B plus A minus for going out there and just giving it a valiant effort and just coming up just short, because a lot of people weren't expecting the Bears to make this game competitive or win. I think ESPN's Power Index gave the Detroit Lions like a 90% chance of winning this game. So I think that the Bears really proved that they have some heart. They have some, passion. And I just wish this team was healthy, because I really still think that if this team was healthy, this whole season would have an entirely different narrative to it. But we can't change that, so we have to stick with the one we have, Nick. But all right, I think this leads us into our 2-minute warning. This is where we kind of wrap up our thoughts on this game and put it in a season-long perspective. So, Nick, I'm going to have to defer like the Bears did the coin toss. What's your 2-minute warning?
Okay, after this game, I think the Bears got better. The penalties can be cleaned up. Football-wise, they did get better. They were right there, almost beat Detroit. There was a lot of good things. Matt Barkley's improved. Jordan Howard's consistently becoming that workhorse that we've talked about. And, defense is getting to the quarterback. So, and, if they can get better and a little bit more discipline in the secondary, I think this Bears team can pull out a couple more wins. We have a bunch of division games coming up and Washington coming up. So I'm excited to see what happens. And we're gonna get healthy. We get Alshon Jeffrey back. We'll get Jarrell Freeman back, and that's gonna be huge for his team. I think that right now the Bears they shouldn't be too down about this game. They know they could have won. They played right there until the very end. They know if they clean up their penalties, definitely should have been the winners of this game. So moving forward, I'm excited to see what the Bears do next week, and the Bears should be okay. They know they should have won this game.
Yeah, I think they know that. The Lions are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook. But no, my 2-minute warning, the Bears, they had a chance to do a couple things that they haven't done in quite a while coming into this game. If they would have beat the Detroit Lions today, that would have been the first time that the Bears won in Detroit since Lovie Smith's final game as head coach back in 2012, which oddly enough is another thing that they could have accomplished, which have been sweeping a divisional opponent for the first time since the same year, 2012, which of course came against the Lions, but they were unable to do so. They fell 3 points short. But, Nick, like you said, they shouldn't be too down on themselves about how they played. I think they should be highly down on themselves and how what's the good word for it? Just how clean – I mean, not clean because the game wasn't clean at all, but just the mistakes that they were able to make. They weren't able to put those away. And I think that's the big one. I think that but that's going to happen with all these injuries and all the inexperience out there on the field. Yeah, I think the rest didn't help us out too much today, not going to lie. But I try not to blame it because that's just part of the game. And really, you just have to dictate your own fate. And I think that the Bears did that in that final drive with those, penalties that just kept pushing them in the wrong direction. But getting back to, what we have in store. Like you said, Alshon Jeffrey comes back tomorrow. He shall be back in Hallis Hall. His suspension's over. And this is kind of going to be a prove it for him. He has 3 games to prove to me and to the rest of the Bears fans. Does he want to be in Chicago? And if so, how much? Because Leonard Floyd has scored more points than him this season. And I think that is obviously a terrible stat, but something that he needs to improve, that he can show that he can still be that difference maker that we expect him to be. And I hope that he and Barkley can build some chemistry, because I think that Alshon Jeffrey, the best he's ever played, really has been under Josh McCown. And there's ways in which Barkley kind of plays like McCown, doesn't have that cannon of an arm, has those really good accuracy, really good touch on his balls. And I think Alshon's really good at getting those deep balls with all the arc that, he can do with the touch. And I think that's going to be something to see. But again, the Bears were unable to come away. They lost 20-17 today. But overall, I'm not upset. I mean, we're here. But something I want to note real quick. Last year, the Bears were unable to get a win at home. This year, it seems like they can't get a win on the road. They are now 0-7 away from Soldier Field today. So maybe next year they may be able to find ways to win in both locations. But we're going to figure that out as we get around it. All right. I think that's going to do it for our show, Nick. I want to thank you all for watching live or to the replay. And, of course, I want to thank each and every one of our podcast listeners. Again, the Bears lose to Detroit Lions 20-17. We're going to be back soon with our Week 15 preview later on in the week, as we will break down the upcoming game against the Cheeseheads, and hopefully we can come out with a win, because why not? I would like to knock down the Packers and add one more L to their loss column. But We're going to be back to break down that game, and we're going to continue answering fan questions in those shows because that's really spiced up our show and has made it so much more interesting than we've had before. So definitely stick around for that come Thursday. So you guys out there who are listening, you better start thinking of questions now. You have a couple days to decide. We will see you soon. Until then, bear down, Chicago.